governments don't fear Bitcoin or decentralization because it's a scam. It's not because they're trying to keep you safe. It's because it works without them. Now, their fear, when you understand government and the nature of government throughout history, good or bad, they kind of they need you to need them. Right? There has to be some sort of reliance to the state in any type of way. Look at the more authoritarian countries that have existed in history. They usually want you completely reliant on them. They attack things that could take away that power, whether it be religion or the banking system of said country, censorship in any way. Usually, it's through freedom of speech. Most countries don't usually have or don't have complete freedom of speech. Some will come closer to others. Most don't, though. Throughout history, it's not actually a very common thing. Western governments do the best at that throughout history at any point. Europeans countries are always the best with it. But before I derail that, they use this excuse of like, oh well, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, these are all scams. They're pump and dump. They allow for money laundering, buying drugs off the black market, or like the dark web, all this kind of stuff. And there's some truth to that, sure. No doubt people use cryptocurrencies for bad things, but you can do all that with cash too. You can do that with regular currency. You don't need to go into crypto to do that. Like, you got these shows like was it Grey's Anatomy, an episode where some hackers hacked the hospital or controlling everything, and they demanded a certain like $1 million or plus of Bitcoin um, to an untraceable wallet. That's actually a lot harder than people think. I'm sure it's possible. Anything's possible with technology, but the Bitcoin, the blockchain is an open ledger. Anyone can see it, so it's like, it doesn't actually make too much sense. It's kind of risky doing that. It's probably easier to, if you're gonna do something like that, probably easier to do with cash. But yeah, they don't. The government's not doing this because they actually genuinely care for your safety. For anyone who didn't know that, they care because it works without them. And if it works without them, then that means they have less control over you. It's plain and simple. It's not about volatility, money laundering, or investor protection. It's simply just something that would give you sovereignty, and they don't like that. Crypto is essentially a resistance. And now it is true. There's a lot of pump and dump. Look at the meme coins, all that nonsense. That is, 100% true. I'm not going to deny that. There's tons of people just in the space, just making money, pumping and dumping, and selling garbage coins that don't have any value. Whatever. That doesn't apply here. Right now, around the world, governments are rolling out CBDCs, central bank digital currencies. They promise convenience, security, but really, what they're actually building is control. A programmable, trackable currency tied to your behavior. Doesn't that sound familiar? Hmm? Something they did in, 2022, with a certain bear bug, and they were making people who got the medication. The people who got the medication had to take were given a sort of what's the word I can look for? I don't want to say an ID, but it was like it was like a sort of like a proof that you had this experimental medication, and then so you could carry on with your normal life, go to restaurants, go to the gym, movies, whatever. You know, it was basically a token of good behavior, and all those who didn't have it could not do these things, could not do normal things, everyday things that we all did growing up. That is essentially it was essentially it was a programmable piece of proof that you were behaving well in the eyes of the government. Now imagine something like that tied to your currency or to your money, right? You're doing something that you don't do something they want you to do, and they go, oh yeah, that's fine, of course, but hey, here you can't do anything now. It's not freedom. That's what a CBDC would do, a central bank digital currency. They, it's not the same thing as a permissionless, decentralized crypto or blockchain. It's totally different. Crypto doesn't just bypass the dollar; it bypasses permission. Now, I made some of these notes here, but just stick with the theory here. In theory, with crypto, you don't need a wallet or a bank account. You don't need an identity. You don't need the government's approval to send, own, or store value. Now, I say that in theory because a lot of these exchanges, when you go to buy cryptocurrencies, you have to give them some sort of government identification, or else they don't let you on their service. I don't like that, but it is what it is. But what I said here, my 3 points, they tie to the idea that, again, governments don't like that. They're not okay with that. It gives you CBDC, right? So now you add in AI. AI is going to be a game changer. It already is a game changer. Look at what things it's doing. Smarter than a human being, like by just many bounds, right? If you're going to get autonomous organizations, borderless protocols. These are also systems that don't need permission from governments. They operate on code. Not fiat, not votes, not trust. And that's a big threat. An uncensorable economy, a post-state machine. That is a big no-no. With AI-run economies, you get, AI isn't making decisions, it's making markets. I did that. In the future, AI agents will autonomously buy and sell assets, allocate capital in real time, manage digital labor, and govern decentralized economies. These AI agents will live on chain where code is law and trust is replaced with verifiability. That kind of goes into this idea of decentralized blockchains that have their own rules that govern their structure via smart contracts and whatnot. And these AI agents would simply just enforce these contracts and make sure no one's trying to hack or break the rules, right? A DAO, a DAO for farming subsidies governed by an AI that allocates resources based on weather data, satellite imagery, and market demand, all without a central government. That threatens power because governments won't be the middleman of value. AI plus blockchain removes the need for central planning because planning becomes autonomous, right? Code doesn't need a passport. Crypto doesn't care about borders. Blockchain protocols are global by design. Ethereum doesn't belong to the US, China, or any other nation. Bitcoin isn't issued, it's discovered through mining and whatnot. A DeFi app, decentralized app, can serve a kid in Lagos the same way it serves a banker in London. It's interesting. Where you're from. Filecoin stores your data, not your nationality. The Lightning Network lets you send money globally in seconds. No SWIFT, no banks, no KYC. That also threatens power and undermines monetary policy, capital controls, and economic warfare. If a protocol can serve anyone anywhere, why do we need nations to mediate trade at all? And you got autonomous DAOs. Everyone feared Skynet. Skynet, but they should have feared the DAO. Decentralized autonomous organizations are entities with no real CEO, no state, no borders. Run by smart contracts, governed by token holders, immune to shutdown unless the entire chain goes down. A decentralized city fund governed by citizens' tokens, a freelance marketplace where workers will vote on wages and policies, an AI-run investment fund governed entirely by on-chain data. That's another threat to power. DAOs replace corporations and bureaucracies. Let people govern themselves without politicians, lawyers, or even banks. Right? Governments hate crypto not because it's a scam, because it's an exit. An exit from the fiat state, from borders, from top-down rule. And the most, honestly. It's simply that. It's just, this is something that could negate our control, so we gotta cut down on this. Eventually, they're going to roll out some sort of central bank digital currency. It's kind of inevitable. They're going to try to, at least. And they'll have, I'm sure they'll have their own blockchain on there too with their own rules. they'll use all this stuff. This is the thing. And people will say, "Oh, they'll never allow any of this." Prometheus, they'll never allow us to do any of this. And you're right, they would never allow it. The thing is, though, if you look at the progress of technology, I don't think it's whether or not they allow these things to happen. It's just they just happen, right? Look at how slow government is when it comes to making policies or just doing anything. The governments are very slow. They're very cumbersome. I'm sure they can try their best to sort of make policies to hamper down on these things, to restrict certain things. That takes a while, and technology moves fast. People are fast, especially the really high IQ people. They're very quick, and they find workarounds to all this stuff. So there's a sort of game, right, between governments and free citizens or technology, whatever. This is a game that's played with all different players, all different factions, and it's a back and forth thing, right? Causation. They can come down in one way, come down on a rule or a policy, but then that creates an unintended consequence to something else, and then something else kind of counteracts that or works against that, right? This is sort of like a law of the universe, I guess you could say, is that with one great power can't exist without another great power. You can't just have one top-down control, and then there's nothing else to sort of counter that control. There's always something else fighting against it, in one way or another. So I see this technology, read this stuff, my notes. I just kind of scroll through stuff here, and this technology is it's too good, it's too efficient. I just don't see how you can totally control this or avoid this. It's so inevitable. They're trying, they really are, and they're gonna figure out some way to do that. But by the time they figure that out, something else has popped up and just gone in the way. So it's not as easy as we like to think it is. But yeah, in a nutshell, just a quick overview of that is the sort of big difference between the two. CBDCs are about complete control. It's not the same as Bitcoin. If it would be cool if the governments of the world tied their currencies to Bitcoin. That'd be pretty sick. It's a little too volatile right now for that. Maybe some rules and some policy might mediate that, but something like that is bound to happen, and there'll be a back and forth fight. And that's just how the world works. So thank you for tuning in. I'm making more of these videos. I'll be sharing more of my notes. I just have so many notes I've written over time that I'd like to just express. It helps me think. It helps me understand certain things better. So thank you for listening, for all those who did, and take care.